The hour being 9 o'clock, we'll call the meeting to order. We'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Commissioner Portland, would you lead us in pledge?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Next, everybody's an agenda. We need to make any changes or corrections to the agenda. Okay.
I'd like to move the executive session and the handbook review, the executive session to 11 and the handbook to 11:30, due to the fact that 3 individuals can't be here until that time because of court requirements, and they're both parts of that meeting.
Okay.
I also had one other request. I'm not sure. I mean, there was some, I guess, miscommunication, but there was a request by my office to be on the agenda for request for a budget amendment because of some child expenses. That was sent out, and I'm not sure exactly what happened to it.
Do you want to be here for that?
Yeah,
Okay. That shouldn't take but just a little bit.
probably 5 minutes.
Why don't we do that just right before the handbook review? That way we'll make sure you're here.
Sure.
It won't take 5 minutes, we'll just bump it right into there. Okay. Commissioner Morton.
I'd like to add a solid waste update to old business if we've got one.
Yeah, I can give you one.
Okay. Thank you.
Is there any other changes or additions to the agenda?
Motion to approve the agenda.
Second.
We have a motion properly seconded to approve the agenda as amended. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed say nay. Motion carried. Next is the consent agenda. We need to entertain discussion on the consent agenda.
Motion to approve the consent agenda.
Question on that chairman's statement of claim or response letter for the hospital. Why was that given to us in the first place?
I don't know, but it's just stating that we are a separate entity from that. We have no connection with
I
that.
got that, but I was just wondering why they thought they needed to bring that before.
Probably because it starts out with Weston County.
Okay. All right.
That's the only reason I know, but it's just basically clarifying that we have no connection.
Second.
We have a motion probably second to approve the consent agenda as presented. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed say nay. Motion carried.
My name's Henry Nessel. I'm president of the Chamber of Commerce for the Newcastle area. During our November meeting, it was our annual meeting, and we've given some recognition awards to our community, our membership, and one award was not given because no one attended. So, Sheriff, you come forward, please. And your deputies can come in because they're all part of this.
Come on.
Camera shy.
Come on. At this time, I'd like to say thank you very much for your outstanding service and your office's outstanding service to the community. When we've needed you, you've been there. You've been there not just for the chamber, but for the entire county. We present you with a small plaque of our appreciation. Thank you. We really appreciate that. We appreciate you too.
Hold on. That I can fix. There.
Good morning, Drew. You're up.
Good morning. I was wondering, I wasn't hearing anybody. Good morning, commissioners. I hope you're doing well. We have a very quick report for you this morning, but we wanted to touch base before the first of the year. So we just wanted to report on the Black Hills that the final assessments have been posted. There will be no comment period on the final assessments, so we will be reviewing those really to see what they changed. Did they update the information? Is it better? Are there still data gaps? And do we have more current information that we need to upload into the system for them to use? So we're in the process of continuing to have our monthly meetings with the Black Hills Forest Service and the regional office. And really right now they're just organizational, so there's nothing new. The assessments, I'll be honest, we had solar, we're in the middle of sage grouse and also the Rock Springs Resource Management Plan. So I haven't even had time to crack the binder on the assessments. I'm hoping to do that after the first of the year. But if we've got any issues with any of those, we'll come back to you for some additional information. We're also working with Caleb Carter at the Conservation District office as well. So are there any questions on the Black Hills? Things are moving better. We actually have an acting forest supervisor now. So he's going to be placed by the end of the year, and hopefully the goal is that he's going to be there through this whole plan amendment process. So that will be great. Jeannie, do you have anything to add on the Forest Service?
Yeah, can you hear me?
You can.
Okay. I had attended this Dakota Society of American Foresters Symposium in Rapid. The team that Drew mentions, the Forest Service team out of the regional team, I got to meet with them. It was a typical meeting. Yeah, you learn a lot at the meeting, but you learn even more during the breaks and at lunchtime. So I have a good feeling about the people we're going to be working with, and I had to put my 2 cents worth in. Regarding the assessments, I have heard from Kirk County we have asked some of our citizens to look at those, and one of them was a Forest Service or forest leasee, grazing leasee. And he got back to me after these assessments came out last week or 2 weeks ago. one of the things of the forest in this assessment has completely ignored any wildlife. No wildlife at all, unless they were endangered. And regarding the elk population, it's exploded. Yes, the Forest Service has nothing to do with hunting or anything, but you can't really have a land plan and not include the animals that are grazing on there. So we will definitely be writing a comment and talking to Game and Fish about how we can do this. How that affects the leasees is they take the carrying capacity of the forest, and if the elk are eating on it, that means less cows can graze on it. And that's not acceptable, especially since the Forest Service does have a plan for wildlife. They just did not include it in the assessment. So grazing will be one we'll be looking at. Timber naturally. When it gets into the NEPA process, these private individuals will not have a say at the table. That will be Drew, and that will be Nathan and Fred. So Drew, could you kind of explain a little bit how these agencies that are not government agencies can participate before we get into the NEPA process?
I think and that's a good point, Jeannie, one of the biggest ways is it's just like a public comment process. If there's specific information that we want to make sure is analyzed in the document, we're going to need to upload that into our system. And Weston County has its own folder for this project that we can upload whatever information we want to make sure that the Forest Service considers in the process. So the NEPA, what I'm being told right now is that we're looking at the scoping process starting probably late winter, early spring. That tells me probably late March, April is what they're targeting right now, which will be a good time frame to get started. So the public will have time to comment during the scoping process. While the team goes through these assessments, we'll be reaching out to all of these experts that we have in our stakeholders and getting information to update the system. So there's a lot of work to be done. Jeannie's had a little more time to start looking through things, so she's begun that process, and I will try to get to that after the first of the year. And we'll be reaching out if there's any more additional information that we need, or if the numbers just don't look right. Any questions from the commissioners?
We don't have any.
Okay, so BLM, I really don't have any updates. I haven't heard from them. I suspect they'll be getting back to us after the first of the year to have a cooperating agency meeting as they're putting together the alternatives. So I don't really have much of an update on schedule either. The last time I heard with the schedule is that we would see a draft EIS sometime in second quarter. I don't know at this point. So we'll probably hear something after the first of the year, and we can circle back around. Regarding sage grouse, I'll just give you a quick update on sage grouse. Man, it's been a painful process, I'm not going to lie. So I'm working with WCCA. The preliminary administrative draft is out for the cooperators to look at right now. I can't talk about a lot of the details because that's all pre-decisional information, but we have a lot of work to do. We've had meetings with the BLM throughout this process, really since June or before, and we thought we had made some inroads into getting some language in there that was good for the state, and we're not seeing some of that language now that we've seen the preliminary draft. So there's a lot of work going on. We are also, the counties through WCCA, Micah and I are also participating with the state leadership, the state sage-grouse leadership team. That team can include all the state agencies, including the Game and Fish as the lead, the governor's office, Department of Ag, etc. We're on that team with them coordinating through this effort. Then we also have another leadership team that we meet with once a month, which includes BLM, Forest Service, Fish and Wildlife Service, etc. So we are exactly where we need to be in the process, but the process has been hard. The process has been a little broken, and we're doing our best to try to see if we can influence this preliminary draft before the draft comes out to the public. So I will just say, there's a lot going on behind the scenes on your behalf. And if commissioners, if you want to talk about it in detail, you're welcome to call me. There's just not stuff I can talk about in a public meeting at this time. But once the draft comes out, we can talk about everything. So, and that'll be after the first of the year. Any questions on that?
Nope.
Then the last thing I think I'll just say, and then I'll see if Jeannie has anything else. Just for your information, so we're going through the Rock Springs Resource Management Plan. It's horrible. It couldn't be worse. It's as bad as it could possibly get for multiple use users. What my role is I'm working with Fallon Law Office, and we were retained by WCCA to go out and do a consistency review for all 5 counties and their updated county natural resource plans, because your plans are very robust now. The BLM in their draft EIS, the plans that they used for the counties were dated from 2004 to 2011. They didn't even use their current plans. So we're going through and doing a consistency review. I've got to tell you, it's the most tedious, daunting task I've ever done in my entire life. But I'm hopeful that it's going to force the BLM to answer some questions as to where they're not consistent with the county plans and why, because they're supposed to be as consistent with your plan as law allows. So that's our role in this. The governor's office, we're working closely with them. They have retained, they're working with the UW Ruckelshaus Institute. They're conducting several public meetings. If you log on to the University of Wyoming Ruckelshaus Institute, they will have a page there just for the Rock Springs effort, how to write comments. The governor's office has also put together an outside task force that are meeting frequently to help them come up with what they want to see in a plan or a more balanced alternative moving forward versus preservation alternative. I must say though, for those of us who are multiple use supporters, this is really problematic because they came out and supported the preservation alternative. So they're starting from a position of strength. We're starting from a position of weakness. So we've got to do everything that we can in this process to lay the foundation to, 1, negotiate a better alternative, or 2, to take them to court. So it was not in good faith that they did this. They've done it on a few other things, and we're going to do whatever we can to make sure we lay the foundation for potential litigation. So that's all I can say. It's terrible. We have nowhere to go but up. Any questions on Rock Springs?
Nope. Thank you for the update on Rock Springs.
It's horrible. They did extend the comment period to January 17th. So we did get some reprieve there, but they didn't withdraw it. So we're working on that deadline, and that's what I'm working on now. Jeannie, do you have anything else to add before we sign off for the year?
No, I don't have anything.
As always, commissioners, thank you for your support. We appreciate it. We're going to be just as busy in 2024. So we look forward to seeing you. Have a great holiday.
You too. Thank you.
Thank you, Drew.
Merry Christmas, all.
Bye.
Bye.
Does everybody here know what the Rock Springs and RMP, the resource management plan, is going on down there? What that is, BLM come out with a resource management plan down in the Rock Springs area, and it was millions of acres, and they just came in and said, this is what we're doing. They took no input from the counties, any of the affected people, and it was shutting off everything, even mining, wildlife. It was a very bad plan that they just sent out there.
What was their plan's agenda?
We don't know. Nobody, it's just basically, like Drew said, preservation. It was just
For sage grouse or just for?
everything.
of the whole-
There was
the whole
nothing going to be
territory?
allowed. No hunting, no grazing, no mining. Everything was, it was basically put into wilderness. The best way to put it. That's what we're all fighting for. So. Okay. Next up is the fairgrounds. Hey,
Mr. Chairman, David Flamm with the Fair Board. A couple quick things. We did talk about at the last meeting when David was here about the arena. So Eric went down and he actually got, if you guys want to look at, this is the dirt that he's actually proposing.
Yeah.
This is the dirt that's out of David's arena, and the other stuff would be pretty much all sand, okay?
This is what we got right now.
That's what we have right now. And he had one back here. He actually sifted some of the spaghetti. Sifted. And this is actually a comparison. Now this is really, really fine stuff. This is what we have that's been sifted.
That's sifted.
Not streamed, but sifted. Okay?
And no, I'm not volunteering to do the whole arena.
This is what's in there right now, right?
Oh, come on, Eric.
Anyway, we kind
Sand.
of talked about it and we agreed with David, you know, let's go that way.
That's the proposed dirt. This is
Eric
it.
just called it a county shop.
That's sifted.
The loader
Which I like.
the trucks. He kind of.
That is pretty amazing.
Talked about possibly at the end of this year, that just we'd be able to cut away some free time to do it. David's got a truck. He said he's pretty sure he's got a couple other people who volunteer their trucks to help us haul the material down. So, you know, that's kind of in the works right now. David's been talked to by Eric about the time frame with basically the county. And that's kind of where that sits right now. So, I really think that the other stuff would probably work if we, I'm gonna go ahead and talk to, Doug Jones. Brown, sorry. I keep getting mixed up. Anyway, and have him just hold off for a little bit. If we take this out, I still think we have good sand there. And if we could come up with the money, give us an idea what it would cost us, maybe sift it and put it in the outdoor arenas. I don't think there's anything really wrong with what we have if the screening would work. You know, if it would work for what people think we need. Now, I'm not saying it'd be, I want no say so because I don't know exactly what we need for dirt. If we get enough people out there and they say, hey, that'll work great for the outdoor arena, we have some sand that maybe we can sift and we can get it cheap. I have no idea what it would cost to do that yet. So that'd be my proposal, just have Doug hold off for a while and we'll see how this goes by the end of the year and proceed with that, bringing in the new dirt. If that works for everybody here, that's kind of what we talked about. They are donating the dirt to us and stuff like that. So, but we do have to have a bigger loader to load it, help clean out the arena and stuff like that. Okay.
We don't have a time frame yet on when this will be completed, or did I misunderstand?
Well, my understanding, I'm assuming if they take their loader down, they're going to want to get it done ASAP. And I'm assuming the county's going to need that loader back. You know, it ain't something they're probably going to sift back and forth. But I'm assuming.
Jimmy didn't think before the new year. He's in the middle of stuff.
That's what he's talking about doing it. And if we get a couple more trucks, he's talking 3 loads per truck a day. That's what he said here last meeting. So 3 trucks, that's 9. So you're looking at, even if it was just the county trucks, you're looking at 3 days to haul the material that in. Then get it spread back out, and then we should be good to go. David's dream was to have it done before Christmas, so people coming back from break might be able to use the arena and stuff like that. So, but that's just what when we talked to the county shop. That's kind of where they're at with that. Okay.
One quick thing, David. You mentioned some of the product maybe being that was removed in sifting and appropriate for outdoor or something like that. I'm just saying, be careful about whoever's doing the quality control on that, so we don't shift this issue to our outdoor arena.
That's exactly right.
That was.
We get the same people that's got the input here, the barrel racers, the ropers, and all that. Yeah. It's not going to be the fair board or anything like that. We're going to open it up. We're going to want to bring people in, and what he does is, if he'll still do our sample on it, free sample, see how it works. Mm-hmm. They either agree to it. If they don't agree to it, we're not going to put it on.
Thank you.
Okay. Now let's go back to the budget. Last time I was in here, I haven't been last time I had a meeting before. I've been hitting roadblocks all the way through this with QuickBooks. QuickBooks, you just don't buy a floppy disk anymore and load it on. You have to go to a representative. They download it from that because they got control over it because it's a yearly charge on this here. Okay, so I got the price. The price is higher than what I asked for. It's like $648, $650 pre-tax before they load, to load it on. That's what they're asking for. The big problem is right now, they don't do anything. These are one of the roadblocks. Daniel Tisdale's name's on that as the administrator. That's how we've been getting updates and stuff on this. Unless we've just been paying it every year and going through, but Daniel's name has to come off of it. I got with Daniel yesterday. Daniel's helped me out with the paperwork because he said he went through this a couple years ago. So I got his paperwork. We need to have a special meeting and appoint someone as the administrator on this. And if you have any suggestions, that's great. If you want to put on there, we do that. But we need to get, basically, we have to put a new administrator on so that we can get QuickBooks loaded on our computer again. We have a license number and everything, and that's what locks it all up on our computer.
On your QuickBooks, you guys are, the clerk's office does your payroll.
Right.
Be very careful that they don't sell you all the payroll stuff, because that gets very expensive updating that.
Right. This does not include payroll.
Okay.
We actually had two of them. We had a payroll and that. And I really think, as a board, and I know Daniel uses it, and he pays $2,000 a year. I mean, granted, it comes out of his budget, still comes out of ours. I don't know why we look into that as an administrator we have up here. We come down and every branch that we have is able to use that as one outfit, maybe 5 users or something like that. I think you guys ought to look into that and get that, see if it'd be beneficial for us to do something like that. Where we have one for all the county and all the units that want to use it still have their own individual logins to do their business. Going forward, because it's expensive when you're talking. We had $1,025, I think, a few years back that we used to put in, but that was for all the support and all that kind of stuff that went along with it. I don't know, if you look at each one of them, that gets kind of expensive as far as when you look at the county commitment. As we look at the county bill, we're still forking that bill over, and if there's a way we could do one administrator, then we could come down and log into each individual branch. Might be able to save a little money that way. But I need to see about shifting more money over from what we did last time in order to get it logged in. Otherwise, we can't log in.
Do we have somebody that can run the QuickBooks? Because in the past we've had it and we still had issues with spreadsheets and those type of things. So that's just a question.
Dan has agreed to help us get everything straightened out.
Okay, and continue. So when you say straighten it out, what does that mean?
Well, I'm assuming we're gonna have to do some training on what we do, but you're gonna have that problem anytime you have some kind of change in management or anything like that.
I understand.
And that could be something that you put into your job description. You have to know QuickBooks. I mean, that's what the auditors wanted as,
Right.
and go from there. And the other thing would be, once we get everything taken care of, maybe we outsource it. I have no idea.
Will your manager be able to, the manager you hired at the fairgrounds, will they be able to enter into QuickBooks, or are you separately entering it in after, or how's that gonna all work? Because I think we've run into these problems before, not that you will now, but.
Right now, we gotta get caught up. I mean, that's where we're at now. And Eric brought up the same thing. Right now, we have Eric hired as the manager, because we found that there's a conflict in prioritizing the office work and the work getting outside. This time of year, it's great. It very well could sift that way, that the manager would pick that project up too. It would, kind of like what Carrot did. And right now, no, we don't. It's not. He'll be able to help us out, yes, and he would be in on the training as far as using QuickBooks when we sit down and start doing the training on it.
So right now, you and Tammy are working with it?
Right now, Cammie and I are the only ones that's trying to get it loaded up so we can just see what we have to get through this audit. And then we have to back up and we have to start putting our stuff in from this year. From basically, the audit's from July through the end of June last year. And then we don't have anything in QuickBooks. We do too. We have QuickBooks up through February. If we can get in there and look at our files. Our book should be updated through February this year, is what we have right now. That's what Carol was still using as QuickBooks. I don't think QuickBooks was canceled by anybody. I just feel that when they came to that point where they had to do that yearly pay, the credit card we had closed out no longer paid for it, so they just shut it down.
And I get you guys are working towards taking your own stuff back over if you can, but that's gotta be able to be relayed to the clerk. Be able to keep your bills up to date.
Right.
And all those things that we've had issues with before. Again, it's not a criticism, I'm just wondering if we've got plans laid out to resolve the issues of the past to get this moving.
Right. And that's kind of what we was doing at one time. I think, well, I'm pretty sure Ed was there. We had talked to, I'm drawing a blank on name. One does the Mount Camp. Dana was actually going in, because she found some issues with it. It was not a big deal, it was just duplicates, and that's when we run a report, we kept coming up with different numbers. She was pretty sure that's what it was. And you guys have always said Dana has always done a great job from Mount Camp, and she's offered to help us out, you know, and she's very cheap if we did have to hire her out to get our books set up so that they're pretty much cookie cutter. This is the way it is. This is the pull downs you use, and you should be good when you know after everything's included into it. I mean, but where we go with office help right now, I'm not for sure.
I'm Francie Hamilton, part of the Fair Board. I am willing to step into that role if we're agreeable as a board to help transition everything. I told David that a while back, but if that helps.
And I think part of our problem was before is we banked on one person running it, and that's all it was, and none of us really had any input because we didn't know anything about it. And I know Francie, she's willing to learn it. You know, that's where we're at. I mean, our goal is that we're going to utilize it. We're going to get this stuff straightened out and move forward. And whether, you know, when the time comes, we take over the books again, we will, you know, we'll have to prove ourselves with it, and we'll just go forward with it.
We pull that out of salary. Yes. How much more do you need? I can't remember.
It's got to be about, well, $650 plus tax, so it's going to be somewhere around $700. Unless we had another roadblock, but that's what they told me that they could put it on there.
There shouldn't be tax on
I
it.
think it was.
Well, that's just,
For-
if there's no tax to it, I don't know. She just said that was pre-tax.
You should be able
So,
to get the tax.
yeah, you do tax exempt. We don't pay tax. I think his request was $450 or
400, plus or minus. That's what it was.
Well, it's in, you know, you've got that dollar amount in your budget there.
We do.
You have to shuffle it around. 'cause
You have to shuffle it around,
You
yes.
have to use for payroll. and all, so.
I think you did it with plus.
If you're willing, I mean, I'm good with that, but we need to move forward. We'll have to have a special meeting hopefully tomorrow and work to, Daniel says, when he sent his in, it took a couple of days, and they have it taken care of. So we need to get Daniel off of it. We need to decide who we're gonna put on as administrator and move forward. Then we need to make sure that we're putting that on a roll, that if it's one of the board members, that if the term is up, it's just automatic. They have to redo the paperwork to get it changed. That's what he said. Hopefully we'll talk about that, or we don't have to have special meetings. We can't wait another month. So.
You need at least one or two people, besides at least two or maybe three people know how quick it works.
Yeah.
So somebody gets off the board. And we've used QuickBooks for over 20 years, and it's not that intimidating. It looks pretty intimidating to start it, but once you get in.
And that's what the auditors, when they showed me what they had, it looked very straightforward. And she just, and what Dana was saying, we just, somewhere along the line, there's just a bunch of stuff that just got duplicated. And, you know, if you picked the wrong one, it didn't show it in the report. If you did pick it, it picked it up in the report, but there was like 2 or 3 different pull downs that you could pick. But if you didn't put it in the final report, it didn't show up.
Yeah, you just gotta be careful when you set up your accounts, that you keep your accounts straight when you first set up.
That's what she said. So. And we go to that 400 flush of mice, go ahead and get it?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, it's something you as a board, you guys are gonna have to do. You really don't have a choice.
So, okay. I mean, it seems like kind of a waste for what little bit of money we're using right now, but that's what they're requiring us to do, so. So, okay, sounds great. Any questions for me? The arena sound good to you? It does.
Move forward with it and work with Jimmy, trying to get stuff done. All right.
And everybody here knows Eric, right?
Yep. I think so.
Okay.
What's your name?
Eric Dudzinski.
I was running a little tardy, but.
Thanks for bringing that in, too, Eric. Good idea.
I'll put it on.
Can't compete with something that's tangible and visible and feelable.
Just think of dirt is dirt or sand is sand.
Good idea.
I love the screening results. Those are just beautiful.
Well, it's up in the end of January, I'm ahead of the game, so.
Thanks, Billy.
Yep, thank you, Billy, we will.
Have a good day, Billy.
Make sure you get him.
All right, thanks.
If that's his letter of trying to get back in, he's a good guy. Keep that. He's a good asset for us.
If it's the opposite, deny it.
Okay, next is introduction to Weston County Nurse Manager.
Yeah.
You are up.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, I just want to come here today to take the opportunity to introduce myself. I know most of you. I'm Angie Phillips, and I was just hired as the County Health Nurse Manager here. So there's lots of room to grow in public health. That's my plan. I have quite a bit of history in infection prevention, employee health. I worked at the hospital for 16 years. So yeah, that's my plan, is just bring some new programs to the county. So any questions for me? I've only been here a week, so it's be easy on me, but
Nothing.
good.
Is there anything we can do to facilitate your transfer over and help? Let us know.
Okay,
Try
thank
to
you.
make it easier for you. And
Great, appreciate that.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Welcome
Thank
aboard.
you.
You made a good choice. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Now we break for
Ever.
forever until 11. Since we got things around. I guess I could do it. If you want to do a bump up the old bit, just give me an update on the landfill.
That'd be great.
Where we're at out there right now, the contractors have got the liner all put in the pit. They are putting a layer of sand down on top of the liner. Looks we're gonna be kind of winding up on the construction of the cell before the end of the year. The buildings and scale, that will probably be towards the end of April when that's all completed. We opened bids and ordered bids on the building and the scale, and when we opened them, contractors, there was a clause that they were 120 days on building material. So that's what kicked us back. Otherwise, we'd have probably been open by the end of January, but we got kicked back because of the building material lag. We are moving forward out there. It's a lot of progress. If anybody drives in there, make sure you stay out of the way of the yellow equipment. Because those guys are moving a lot of the soil, a lot of dirt.
Do you guys have any discussions, like how you anticipate that Osage facility moving in and
When
that'll-
the new landfill is open, there is a transfer station over at the old Osage landfill that got transferred into, absorbed into the big district last year. We'll use it as a transfer station, and days it's open will just depend on how much use they have. And right now, the town of Upton is going to build a transfer station. The district is doing the match for it, so it's not costing the town of Upton any money. When it's done, they're going to sign it over to the district. So there'll be a transfer station in Upton, work the same way. Just depends on how much garbage comes in, is how many days it's going to be open. But there will be a transfer station in Upton and one in Osage when it's all said and done. So, moving forward with it.
And okay, what predicted, you were thinking like April?
Probably towards April, end of April is what we're looking. Kind of tentative, depends on how things go. what spring weather does for construction stuff. But the contractors are preparing the site for the buildings. Within the next, I'd say 2 to 3 weeks, we'll start constructing the power line in. That's got to come from the old packing plant by the current landfill, because we're already running 3-phase into that place. That's where we're at, and an update for the new landfill. Perfect. Anyone else have questions on that? I'll put my hat back on that. We will recess until 11.
Are you having executive session in between now and then?
Nope, that'll all start at 11.
The executive session at 11.
Executive session and a handbook. We'll have to follow the executive session.
Okay. What is the executive session regarding?
Personnel.
Aye.
Yep.
Okay. Thank you.
Recess.
It's better than I thought it was going to be when I was hearing about the split.
Yeah. Well, when I talked to Alicia a couple weeks ago, we were looking at maybe 7 tops, but we're up to 9, potentially 10. We had a new kid move in that might be wrestling as well and joining the team now, you know, so a little bit behind the start. So that's going to put us in a problem when it comes to duels. You know, we're not going to win a lot of duels because we don't have anybody over 160 pounds. And so, you know, we're going to give up 40 points.
Right.
In every duels meet. So obviously it's going to be tough to make that up. We do have some good returners.
Well, you get a couple of fatties off the couch and have them put the Pop-Tarts down, and
right?
You can give people a run for the money.
Yeah.
Probably going to get in trouble for that one too, but
you
know,
you might.
Come on, Evvies, get out there and go wrestle.
Document be given to the clerk so that her paperwork is in order as well.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion properly seconded to give Deputy Stone her vacation and sick leave when she was made a full-time status, and to change her back to an exempt employee from non-exempt. Is that correct? Is there any discussion on that motion? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. Motion carried.
Thank you guys for fixing it.
Real quick, Michael, for your budget amendment.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate you guys putting us on the agenda. I had some email last week asking to be put on regarding this. We have a pretty big jury trial coming up. We're not exactly sure when it's going to happen now. It sounds like it might be moved again, but we just want to be prepared. It concerns a injury to a baby, and in that we will need, it involves a lot of a lot of witnesses, and it involves an expert witness that we need to get up here from Colorado, and a potential witness that we need to get up here from Texas, various other witnesses around northeast Wyoming. It's going to be quite a lot of stuff going on here, so we need a budget amendment to cover the cost for that trial prep and the expert witness, the witness fees, the mileage. I'm assuming some lodging, some meals. You have them, right?
Do we need to do that now? Well, we're in our budget now. Can we do that amendment after the trial when you know exact amount it needs to be? Just prepare us for it now.
I would just rather have it there so we don't have an issue of getting what's supposed to pay, especially because that expert probably will want something up front too. You know, they deserve it. So, so Brooke has working on getting the
Just a question, could we approve them to spend the funds with the understanding that we need to do a budget amendment after the trial? That way, we do have the exact amount, or do we have to put, I know he said he'd rather prefer it that way, but if we're giving the approval to spend that money, under the understanding that we have to do an amendment after we know the total amount.
Question for Mike, do you have in your budget remaining total all over? Do you have enough to pay that? Then we have to, you don't have that total?
no.
Oh,
In total?
Yeah, I mean, in your budget
Oh,
right now.
I was just thinking of the line. Yeah.
No, well, then we, after it is, when we know the amount, then we can move it around to get amendment to the line item that needs to go into.
To make it whole.
Where would that come out?
Do you want me to write it out of the red that you guys like put it in that line and then you'll move it? Just so
Yeah.
our total line doesn't go into the red?
Yes.
Okay. We
Where
got
would we take it out of?
We'll take it out of that same trial line. It'll just put that line in the red, but our overall budget will be in the green.
Okay, but then, all right, and then you guys will amend.
Then we got, that way we get the exact amount amended into your budget where it needs to be.
Because right now it's guesswork.
Yeah.
You gotta advertise too.
Because you can run it in the red just as long as your total budget doesn't go in the red.
That line has to be up in the red.
What good did you have to run that line in there?
Do we have an approximate
Yeah.
anticipated amount?
Approximately $10,000.
We can use the credit card. if you need to.
I think we have a $5,000 limit on that.
We have to have pre-approval.
Yeah, so it'll just put that line item in the red, and then when it's all said and done, all tallied up, then we can do the amendment to get that line item back into the black where it needs to be.
And Jeannie's point about the credit card pre-approval to go use it for this purpose.
We'll need the lodging and the meals for our witnesses.
We have it, yeah, I guess it's kind of different, it's kind of a special occasion for stream. I mean,
So lodging and meals don't have to have pre-approval?
yeah. So you're okay on that, the lodging and meals?
It's a little different because it's not out of town, but.
But it is for someone out, it is someone from out of town coming into town. So are we good to go?
So,
Anything
and
else?
that's just special prosecutor.
Oh yeah, and relating to that, we've been talking to the AG's office to maybe help us try that case, and in the event that they will help us, we would just like the authority from the commissioners to appoint one or more of them from the Wyoming Attorney General's office as a special prosecutor, so we can make sure we're covered, because we don't have the manpower.
We need that in the motion then
Yeah.
to authorize your.
It's, can I grab the resolution number?
Oh, it's not a resolution.
Resolution, yeah.
Okay. We're running behind on the handbook. Okay. Okay, it'd be resolution 2023-37, resolution for special prosecutor for criminal case number CR 993.
Make a motion to approve resolution number 2023-37, number CR 9932, regarding special prosecuting attorney for the Attorney General's office.
Second.
A motion, proper second to adopt resolution aforementioned for a resolution for a special prosecuting attorney for criminal case 9932. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay.
Motion carried.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you guys for your consideration on that. Those two things, we really appreciate it.
Now we are handbook reviews, commissioners and department heads and elected officials.
Chairman Ed, I would like to have you guys consider either calling the extension office, please, or sending us an email if you set an agenda item for a certain time and then you move it. If I hadn't have been watching, actually, I didn't even catch it, that it was moved to this later time. So out of for communication for all of us, please let us know.
That was a
in the
slight
future.
oversight on Clerk Hadlock. She got everybody else notified.
Yeah, and I, it's not the first time that I've been overlooked, so, thank you.
All right. Commissioner Huber?
I would like to, I wasn't here last time, I was sick, and I watched the video that Walter put online. I couldn't get online to watch it that day, but I'd like to make some comments, maybe to start this out. If you go to the internet and look at any human resources website, they will probably tell you pretty much the same thing. The Society of Human Resources, SHRM, says, and I quote, "An employee handbook can be a valuable communication resource for both employer and employee. It is viewed as a means of protecting the employer against discrimination and unfair treatment claims. It is an easily accessible guide to the company policies and practices, as well as an overview of expectations of management. Employers should be required to provide written acknowledgement of having received a handbook. By no means should a handbook be construed as an employment agreement, but instead should establish rules, set clear expectations, protect employees, guide management and leadership, and ensure employee satisfaction, and create uniformity across the departments." I was not a commissioner when the decision was made to update the handbook, but I can say I would have been a very strong yes vote. I have read the old handbook and the new one several times from front to back. As someone who has been an hourly employee for the county and also has some experience working in human resources, I must say I cannot find anything that is controversial in either handbook. I don't believe anyone has said that there is anything wrong with the old handbook, as some of you have implied. To put it simply, the information contained in the pages of the old handbook is just too generalized to help in most situations. In addition, several subjects have had to be added to the new handbook to keep up with the workplace of today. The old handbook covers most of the federal laws in a very abbreviated fashion. The new handbook has additional information on federal laws, state laws, and statutes, and additions including workplace expectations, customer and citizen relations, employee records, personal relationships in the workplace, political rights, hiring, transfers, rehiring, compensation, resignation and termination, sexual harassment, fair labor standards for deputy sheriffs and detention officers, employee benefits, the county credit card policy, religious holiday leave, computer, telephone, and social media policies including email, texting, instant messages, and cell phones, drug and alcohol policy, and smoking and vaping-free workplace. There are also appendixes for the American Disabilities Act, Anti-Harassment, Fair Labor Standards Act, Policy for Deputy Sheriffs and Detention Officers, Discrimination, Harassment and Violence in the Workplace, Family Medical Leave, Military Leave. These additional sections cover legal descriptions of laws, how to report a problem, the steps to take in your circumstances, and how it will affect your employment. I'm disappointed by the ugly and opinionated comments made by some of our elected officials. It seems they are not taking into consideration two very critical facts. Number one, just like handbooks before the update, this book is to help our county employees understand what is expected of them in their jobs, what basic policies and expectations are, an overview of benefits, what their rights are if they have a problem during employment, and how to go about getting assistance. A good supervisor wants their employees to have such information, education, and training as possible. It makes their job easier if the employees feel secure and there is a consistent form of policy throughout the workplace. Number 2, the handbook protects you as a supervisor by giving your employees the much needed information they need and want at their fingertips so small problems don't become big ones, and they have a place to go to easily have their questions answered. Ultimately, it limits your liability as a supervisor if the problem arises and your employee has signed the acknowledgement that they have received the handbook explaining our expectations and employment law. I've been helping Jeannie with the handbook update since March, when we voted for me to assist where I could. I know there's been communication with every one of you, and I've even attended a meeting that Jeannie had with you. Some of you came and voiced your concerns and questions and had questions answered. At the meeting, most of the concerns were insignificant. Many department heads expressed a very positive attitude towards what was being done. I have copies of many emails sent by Jeannie to department heads, and I know she has talked to many of you in person several times. She has worked very hard to get your concerns and opinions. I find the negative attitude towards this process in Jeannie to be very disappointing. And after all your complaining, it seems like the only thing you really have is it's too long. For your information, Commissioner Taylor and I have talked to the Wyoming Limited Government Liability Program, and no one, not LGLP or the Employee Council, can approve a county handbook. They give suggestions for wording and can make sure you have what you need for federal law, but suggestions only. It is up to the county to decide how thorough they want their handbook. Tori Racines of LGLP told us, to have a good handbook, you must start with your county attorney. Guess what? That's what we did. Some of you said, we don't need the same handbook as Campbell County. Well, Jeannie knew that handbook from Campbell County was thorough and tested, so she started there. I hate to tell you, but it doesn't matter if you live in Gillette or Moorcroft or Upton or Osage or Newcastle. If you have employees, you're all going to have the same problems and you all have to follow the same laws. And yes, as you as elected officials are in charge of your employees working for you as their supervisor. You have an internal policy that is for your department only, and you hire and fire at will. The problem comes from a very important fact. The people working in your departments are county employees. They are paid by the county budget, they get their benefits from county money, and the county in the end will be the one who deals with any lawsuits or problems that come from their employment. Yes, they will sue you, but you are also county responsibility, and the county coffers are where money would come from to pay out a lawsuit. We have all been very unfair to Jeannie Stone. She was hired to do a job of rewriting and updating the handbook. I think she did a very good job and has been trying to get in front of the commissioners for approval for many months. We must all take responsibility here. The elected department heads for being negative and fighting the update, and the commissioners for kicking the can down the road for months and months using the miscommunication between Jeannie and the department heads and ourselves as an excuse. If you have any concerns with the subject of the handbook, I hope you can limit your comments to that concern. I don't believe this is a place to air your personal opinions or grievances towards the commissioner's decision to update the handbook or any of the people involved. Thank you.
Well, I apologize because I didn't know that the handbook topic was going to be on the agenda on December 5th. That originally wasn't, so I didn't know that it was up for that day. But I just, quite frankly, when I undertook this task, I was concerned about making sure that the federal laws and the state laws that every employer has to uphold was outlined in your handbook. And when I started looking at it, my concerns were is that, like, particularly the sexual harassment section was about a paragraph. It did explain what sexual harassment was, what the expectations are by employees. And so I really started being concerned on behalf of the county on whether or not they were educating their employees on what these different legal things were so that everybody understood what they needed to live by in the workplace. So that's where I started from. And then from there, I learned that, in particular, the vacation leave policy that you guys currently have is being applied differently among the different departments. Some granted immediately upon when you start working, you get a day off and you can use that as you wish. Some departments were waiting for employees to wait a year before they could use the vacation that they'd earned. So it was just being applied differently. And so, kind of coupled with those legal principles that I thought maybe needed to be expanded on,
The other piece was social media, internet, those kind of things, because they have become so significant in workplaces. You guys, I think, had like a half a paragraph on that topic. So I was just really concerned about trying to update it so that it would work more in the modern world. And again, giving it the ability to at least educate the employees and the supervisors and the department heads on here are the legal concepts upon which every employer needs to operate, whether you're in Trona County, Campbell County, or Weston County. You all have to operate under these things. So when I started, I didn't realize how controversial this topic would be. Quite frankly, I just thought it would be a good opportunity to update some things. When I did have the meetings, I met, I think, 3 or 4 times with a group. I met individually with each of you at the beginning to get what you wanted, and I have those notes. I mean, some thought having customer relations policy like you guys had previously in the prior handbook would be helpful, so we threw that back in. Some thought that it was too long and wanted the legal parts of the manual to be back in the appendix, so I did that, thinking, if it's too long and you guys want it back there, that's fine, at least it's there. It's not in the front part, but at least it's back there, so I tried to accommodate in that way. And really the only big concerns that I heard was the vacation leave policy, and I knew that needed to be hashed out. And I gave 3 examples for everybody to consider, and we got feedback from pretty much everybody, the electeds and department heads. I think everybody likes the current way the vacation leave policy reads, but again, there needs to be some clarification on what the expectation is in my mind. Do you use it once you earn a day? Can you use it, or do you have to wait this year time frame that some departments do? So I think everybody likes the wording in number 2, but it does need to get clarified. So that would be my only recommendation in regards to that. That was the biggest issue that when I met with everybody, I thought they had. Again, some thought it was too long, and I agree it is long. It's 80-some pages. And unfortunately, legal people like long stuff, but it really is an opportunity to try to protect you as an employer, both as department heads and the county. Because let's say you have a sexual harassment claim. I bet if we went around the room, nobody could really tell me what sexual harassment means. But in the policy that I created, it at least has some guidance on what that might look like, and it provides a process upon which to flesh out those issues and how to handle it. And we didn't have that before. So again, it just kind of gives some structure to kind of really touchy situations, and it gives everybody an opportunity to say, okay, if I have this issue come up in my workplace, here's who I should notify, and these are the steps that are going to get taken. So really, I didn't intend to create a bunch of hostile meetings or try to create a big rift between everybody. Certainly, this was a big project and it took a lot of time. I wanted to update the sheriff's department because the auditor, the couple years I have been here, has said we don't have a policy on the sheriff's department and how they do their payroll. So I went ahead and worked with the sheriff's department, and we created that to include in here. So I tried to really listen to what everybody thought, and I thought I kind of captured that. So I apologize. I know that there's some issues where people felt like, it shouldn't say the county attorney does this or the clerk does that or whatever. And those are things I think could be hashed out, but I really didn't think that it was so controversial other than the leave policy and how it's been applied. So I just wanted to tell you guys, where I started from and why I did the things that I did. It wasn't to try to divide and conquer or whatever. I just feel like this is a very sound policy handbook that will guide you guys if you have issues with your employees or they have questions, and hopefully provide some guidance when things are touchy on certain subjects within your department. You'll know kind of where to start from. So.
Okay. Well, I will start down the line with elected officials. Brian.
I'm for it. It looks really good. As Jeannie said, my agency is probably one of the reasons it took longer to get it done than most, because we have that Fair Labor Standards Act in there. It kind of gets convoluted, but I'm very happy with it. Just like our policies in our department, we revise those, try to revise those on an annual basis. Sometimes it's not, or as we run into a problem with it, and I come to these folks with questions on how that looks, we revise it and move on. So I think the continued revision of this is important as well. But I think if you got a good base, there's going to be kinks in there maybe that we run into. It's no big deal. We can revise it, that area, and it shouldn't take much time to revise it once you got that foundation built. I'm really happy with it.
You're happy the way it's presented now?
Yep.
Susie, you're the next elected official going down the line.
Well, thank you. I'm just gonna go on the fence. said my piece last week. I mean, it's got some good things in it, it's got some bad things in it, and that's all I'm gonna say.
So, you for or against it, as presented?
Neutral.
Didn't ask that. You for or against it, as presented? He's putting you on the spot, but this is not a, in between. It's a yes
I know
or-
it's something in between, but I'll go against.
Okay.
Having said that, I know you said you don't want to say, but what bad things that, so, I mean, we want to eliminate issues. So if there's some bad things that you feel shouldn't be in there, me personally, I think the rest of the board would like to know what those things are so that we don't run down the road later on and we get, well, I hated this in the first place, so we shouldn't have done it. What
I'm just gonna say
specifically?
I'm against it.
Okay, but you
That's
said
it.
bad things.
That's just it.
Okay.
You're against with no opinion.
Right.
Okay. Kara, you're the next elected official in line who stepped out.
I missed my opportunity.
Yeah, should have ran, get the chance.
I went to the meetings with Jeannie. I had read the previous handbook. Not being a supervisor for very long, I haven't read a ton of handbooks except for where I was employed prior. The new one was extremely long, which, like she said, she moved a lot of it to the back. After that was corrected, it was still really long. I'm not a professional and I'm not an attorney. I have heard that sometimes the more detailed the handbook is, the more liability you present yourself with, and that was a concern to me, but again, I don't know how you would alleviate that, and pick and choose what belongs in it, what doesn't. The vacation was a concern of mine. I've always, in my short tenure, and my predecessor had always given vacation after the 1 year mark, and that was very unclear, and I think it still kind of is, so I would like some clarity on that. Outside of that, I think this just escalated at a pretty rapid pace this year. We went from a handbook that I don't think anybody thought really had a lot of issues other than it needed updated and modernized. The final product ended up looking like a completely different one. And good, bad, or indifferent, I guess if it reaches all the goals that the county needs, I understand that. Change is hard for everybody. I didn't mind the old one. I don't really mind the new one, except for what I said, it's super long. And the vacation is unclear. Is some of it unnecessary? I guess I don't know. I'm not an attorney, I'm not an HR specialist. I know it's caused a lot of animosity in the county, which has been very unfortunate. I think not only do the elected officials, the supervisors, the commissioners, Jeannie, everybody has suffered from us disagreeing, but so does the community, and that's too bad. So I would like to put this to bed also. But if there are concerns from the other elected officials that need addressed, I would also appreciate that happen as well.
So, you were a yes with clarity on vacation.
Yes.
That's what I took it from you.
Yeah, that's fine.
Well, I
Yeah,
mean,
we're,
for the most part,
I mean,
you want the clarity,
I mean,
your issue is
this
with
could turn
clarity.
into an hours-long discussion. So aside from the fact that it's not my, I mean, I don't have a professional opinion as to the length and whether or not that's creating more liability for the county or not. That was just a concern I had, but I guess in the end, I'm not educated enough on it to make that call.
You'd like clarification on the vacation, is the main thing.
I do want clarification on vacation.
Okay. Tina, you can't hide all the time. Sneak in here.
First of all, I appreciate the efforts that Jeannie and the staff that helped her prepare the handbook went through. Thank you very much. I do echo, it is lengthy. I think that some of it needs to be sorted out towards department heads versus employees. I think some of it gears towards elected and department heads versus an employee handbook. I appreciate the legalities that need to go into it for liability issues. The vacation definitely needs to be addressed. The HR representative needs to be addressed. I am opposed to holding vacation time for a year, especially in this day and age. where employees aren't even getting a cost of living raise in Weston County. So I probably will not sign off on that part, but as far as the new handbook, I do appreciate the information that's in it, but it is lengthy.
You're basically wanting the clarification on vacation time and some clarification on the
who
HR stuff.
will be designated as HR.
So
And
Tina,
why.
just to understand though, you would rather have them be able to get their vacation and sick as they earn it, not
As
wait
they
the
earn
year.
it,
Okay.
absolutely, as they earn it.
And you're the same way, Kara? Vacation as they earn it?
No, I'm actually the opposite way.
You wanna wait until they get a
when
full
we-
year?
When we hire somebody, they automatically get the 2 personal days and they accumulate and utilize their sick leave as they go right off the bat. Our office has always waited the entire year before they were awarded all their vacation. I guess in my mind, I feel as though because there are years, I think it's whatever, 0 to 5 or whatever, they have so many hours and then it bumps up and bumps up. If all the employees are entitled to the same amount of hours for how long they've been here, it's just like a question, would it be acceptable for the department heads to do it either way? If that's an option.
We'll give some direction which way to find the product, what we'll have to do. Becky, you're the next elected official in line.
Jim.
Jimmy's not elected.
Oh, you're not doing department.
Ed, can I?
I'll come back to it.
I was gonna say Vicky and Ed and Jim really helped a lot. So,
Yeah.
okay.
I'm coming, we're working our way around to elected officials, then we're coming back around.
So, like I said last time, I like our old handbook. It's very basic for the employees. If what Jeannie did in this new handbook needs to be like a separate department head elected official book, that would be great, because there is some good stuff in there, but we have a hard time, like, for our new employees to even sit down and read what we have now. They're not gonna read this one. I mean, I have a new employee and we gave her the new handbook, we went through it. She still questions some of the stuff in this little one. It's gonna be hard to get a new employee to read this big of a book. And I too, when we have our vacation and we have, my office, when they've been here for so long, they get at the beginning of the year their full hours of vacation, once they've been here a year. If you don't give it to them all at the beginning of the year, they're not able to, if they have to accrue it each month, they're really not able to take a vacation.
I have a question on that. Where you're saying accrued, is it a lot of employers will use it as, say, your first year of employment, you don't get all your vacation that day. You earn it through that year, but then after your first year, then you get it right away. Then you get the whole years after that. But that first year of employment, you have to earn it to get it.
So like,
I want to know the feeling, how everybody wants this.
so like the first year, you don't get any vacation. Once you get to your first year mark, you get your vacation. But like where it says 8 hours per month, this also used to say in the old handbook, you can look, 96 hours per year. And then it goes all the way down to 21 plus years, you get however many for that 21 year mark per year. So
That was one thing I didn't really understand in that concept. So is it, if you, let's say you start October 1st and you work that full year till October 1st, then you get your 12 days of vacation that you accrued through the previous year, is that right?
your 96 hours,
Okay.
it's prorated.
Right, right.
It's prorated till the end of the year, so, because if you were to start in December, you wouldn't get your whole 96 hours, it's prorated.
So presumably after they've worked that first year, you're essentially granting them their time off for vacation before they've earned it. So they could get their time January 1st that they haven't actually accrued, is that right? So if someone, okay, I guess I wasn't sure how you guys do it.
No, and then you have up to 18 months to use that.
Can I add to, can I tell you how we're doing it, just as an example, and I'm not saying we're doing it
Well, I
right.
mean, that's one
So-
of the biggest things this handbook has seen, that some of this
Yeah.
vacation time is,
So I do it the way I got it when I worked for the state. So January 1, I hire Brad. Brad works through January 31st. He's earned 8 hours of vacation, and he, if need be, he could take that 8 hours of, and each month as it goes, it builds. Most of them don't take vacation for several months, and then they will build that account up to take the vacation. Because, like when I worked for DOC, and actually I have that problem, especially in the jail, you have a higher turnover rate too. So, with that said, if the guy doesn't make the academy, he's been there a year and a month, and he doesn't make the academy, but maybe he's burnt a few of those days, that's less I have to pay out and less time I have to wait to bring on the next one. I know that's probably not an issue for anybody else, but it can be an issue for us. So that's what I've done. 8 hours after the first month they've worked, they've got 8 hours on the book.
okay, so we've gotten through all the way. Okay.
I am in favor of the new handbook. I would like clarification. I talked to Jeannie on vacation. I do what Brian does. They work 8 hours, they get their 8 hours. In the university, I get to build up to 352 hours. If you don't use it, you lose it. It's up to me. If I want to take a 2-month vacation then after 26 years, I can do that. But in our mobile society, people are moving too much. And if they come on board and think, I've got to work 365 days before I can get a vacation day, 2 days, personal time, yes, I understand. But things happen, whether it's a marriage, a death in the family, which would be sick leave. But I just think they're happier when they come on, because the people I'm working with now are getting younger and younger. They don't have the loyalty of putting in a full year. I also do like the fact that there is more information in the handbook, because things have changed. Social media, I'm no longer allowed to use TikTok. I'm not a county employee, so I like that clarification. I can go and find out what's a process for sexual harassment. I can at least know where to start. In the old one, it was so vague. I just think we're setting ourselves up for some lawsuits if we keep it extremely vague, and that's my personal opinion. Of course, I'm used to working at a higher institution, and their handbook probably is just as thick. Yes, there's parts that maybe don't pertain to me right now, but I can at least go back and research it. Numerous times before this, I've gone to Michael and Jeannie to get some different questions answered, because it wasn't explained, and it's so vague in the old handbook. And you guys, it's a different world, so we need to update. Sorry, that's just my feelings. That I am for the new handbook. There may need to be some tweaks. I'm not saying it's 100%, but I definitely want clarification on vacation, because I do it as Brian does it.
My concern is the vacation as well. I've been a road and bridge 26 years, and we've always had to be full-time 1 year to get vacation. None of us have died from it. I know when I talked to my guys about it, that was kind of the way they felt too. We had to be here a year, and we're going to let new people get it right away. So I think it just needs clarified. But I think it'd have been helpful instead of throwing this all on Jeannie if we just sat down and talked about it. Went through the current handbook to start with, and talked about what was working and what wasn't.
We do have employers council on Teams. I think they might have a little input for us. You're still muted. Unmute yourself.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, I'm Lori Enke. I'm an HR consultant with Employers Council. Barbara Bagdon, our employment attorney, she had to leave, so for another appointment since the meeting got moved a little bit. But and I'm not familiar with the handbook that you're discussing. This is the last handbook that we we reviewed in March was about 40 pages long. But one of the themes with that, and something that Barbara wanted to make sure was brought up, was we really caution employers about having very detailed procedures in their handbook, especially supervisor procedures in employee handbook. Because if a supervisor doesn't do exactly what is outlined in their handbook, then the employee can point to that and say they were harmed by that supervisor not following that. Some organizations will elect to have like a supervisor manual if you need to have a lot of detail, but we try and recommend keeping an employee handbook short, say 25 to 30 pages long, and keep things brief, so that you do have flexibility to manage the situations as they come up with that, maintaining that. So those are the things that we typically would recommend in terms of handbook design, with that, keeping things brief, and having, you want to reserve your management prerogatives with that. And so those are the things that how we approach it. Don't have contractual or promissory language in there, and not too detailed in terms of guidelines.
Thank you. Oh, yeah, Michael, you're an elected official. I totally overlooked you.
Yeah,
Sorry about that.
Well,
Apologize.
I understand concerns that she said, but the handbook as it is now, to me, just invites, I don't know, so many possibilities of litigation and lawsuits. There's no real direction in there.
And you're saying the old one?
The old one, okay. And so what Jeannie's done is trying to, and has worked a lot of hours on, is try to get that taken care of. That handbook, no matter what, any problems anybody has with it, which I don't necessarily agree with, that will alleviate the vagueness that we have going on with the current one. And so I think the one that you made up is appropriate, and I think we need to get it approved as soon as possible.
And just a comment to, I can't see her name.
Lori.
Lori. When we talked to LGLP, which frankly I'd feel a whole lot better if I do what LGLP tells me to do, since they're the ones who are going to defend us in court if we have a problem. They said the more thorough your handbook is, the better. So, there.
I want to echo that, but I want to elaborate a little bit. The explanation that the LGLP gave us was that, yes, you can create a liability by saying too much, but you can increase your liability by not saying enough. For example, they use the sexual harassment one. You could go, well, sexual harassment, you shouldn't do it. It says in the book you shouldn't do it. But then you can have an employee that can come back and say, well, it didn't say I couldn't do it outside on a Wednesday at 3 p.m. And you can't get that detailed on everything. But, I mean, that's the extreme to that. I get that. As far as the vacation policy goes, I want to comment on that too. I agree with all the elected officials. In my view, the elected officials have department heads, and I expressed this to the clerk last week. For example, you go into the clerk's office and you may be required to wear professional attire, and you may not have to, I'm old school, type so many words per minute or whatever, but you go into the welding shop in Jim's department and you're required to wear boots with steel toes, and you're required to wear a welding mask. Those are things that come from the department heads. By no means, I don't think any of the commissioners want to dictate what the department heads do with their employees. But they are listed as county employees. And my point on the vacation of this is that, honestly, and I'm not saying it's right or wrong, I just want it how you department head want it, but we're not following our current handbook's vacation policy, all of us, as it's written. We're instituting that however we see fit, and to me, if I was in a department, I'm just speaking for me, if I was in a department and go, well, hey, this person gets it now and I don't get it till later, that becomes a point for that employee that, one, they're going to get a little upset. I'm a county employee too, so why am I not getting it? And you can say, well, your department head said not to, but if we're going to put a handbook in place, no matter we keep the old or the new, we should be following that handbook, honestly, to the letter. As far as when it comes down to, some type of abuse or some type of discrimination or giving out written warnings or those things all go back to that handbook. So I worked for MBI as a department head, as their director of safety, and the handbook for that company was that thick. But everything didn't apply to me, which obviously doesn't apply in this handbook to every department. But I was able to go back through and go, well, this is what this is supposed to be, so this is the rules that I need to follow or the guidelines that I need to use. So I just want to make sure that I don't think that even department heads or us have the right to go, we want to go by the old handbook, but we don't want to follow this. And what LGLP said is that, frankly, none of us have to sign the handbook. That doesn't mean the handbook doesn't apply if it's for the county and it's approved by the county. You can refuse to sign a citation. That doesn't mean you're going to have to get out of paying the citation and the ticket. So I've heard people say, well, we're not signing it. You don't have to sign it. You can sign, I disagree with it, and here's my name. That doesn't mean it doesn't apply to the county and the rules don't apply to the county. So whatever we decide to do, and I want to do whatever you guys want to do, but it should be united that whatever we do is, and whatever book we adopt, that's the rules we follow. We don't get to pick and choose what we're going to follow and what we're not, because that puts, correct me if I'm wrong, county attorney, that puts us in a liability situation in a big way. It just points a big spotlight on whatever that issue is.
To go along with that, I gave the commissioners a timeline of some of my personal emails. There was an email that Jeannie and Commissioner Todd wrote to the auditor talking about your issues that you were having. And one of the comments when he wrote back and gave his suggestions, he asked, are you updating your handbook, or are you just going to try to make everybody use it? Because if you're not uniformly going through and using it, it doesn't do you any good liability wise. And so that's where the vacation thing, we have to come to some kind of agreement, because if I start in February and I don't get my vacation until next February, and somebody else starts in July and they get a day in August, I'm gonna have a question about that. And she's right in that the world has changed. People aren't staying at jobs as long. It can be the other way. You can pay out in January. You can give them their 2 weeks, and they've been there since October, and now they quit. So it can go either way. It's a risk either way, but we have to find some grounds of uniformity there, or we're just setting ourselves up for liability.
Is there a way to give department heads some leeway to do what works best for them? Well, like Don said, we've already got different rules for different departments just out of necessity. And I guess my question is that how do you transition from doing it one way to the other? We're now, we've used all our vacation for the year. Now January 1st, you've been there 20 years, you have no vacation now.
Right. That's where this all comes down to. Everybody's been doing it a little differently. And we've got to somehow either write our policy to fit that can fit everyone how they're doing it, or we have to figure out a way to do a uniform policy that everyone can follow. And I have a feeling it's going to be more like these are the options. And I know that Jeannie did a survey with everybody to kind of see what option you want. I don't know, we're gonna have to, as commissioners, we're gonna have to have a workshop and discuss the vacation.
And I perhaps suggest a compromise. I mean, so really the people that we're talking about on this vacation policy that's going to immediately affect are the new hires. So, you know, we try to get them right. So if they have been 8 months with Jim, but we're going to go with this, you get a day and you can earn a day. You know, you get them up to speed to where they need to be. But I guess perhaps maybe I would suggest as a compromise is, you know, are the commissioners willing to grant their employees, let's say, 3 or 5 days of vacation just as its transition period, so that the people like Jim's department who maybe have used their vacation because under this old system and that's how that worked, now have a bank of time that they could use to kind of transition and allow for this new way of doing things to kind of move forward. It might be a good way. I mean, all the employees would get 3 days or 5 days or whatever. I mean, it'd be a something that you guys would obviously have to agree to, and it's, you know, money out of the coffers potentially, but maybe that's a way to kind of get through this or move through this idea that we catch up the new hires, get them all kind of squared away with however they need to be, but then maybe everybody gets a little bank of vacation that could kind of tide them over until they start accumulating on this new system. Just an idea for a compromise, and maybe it gets everybody through something.
In addition to the weekly printed version of the newsletter journal, we also promote our community and share important information on our award-winning website, newslj.com, and in our weekly email newsletter, Nuke Now. We also connect with readers through various social media platforms and invite you to check us out on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. You can even take a look at a recent meeting of the City Council, School Board, or County Commission on our YouTube channel. We do hope that you will go to newslj.com and subscribe today, and we look forward to making all of our great content available to you. But regardless of your level of support, we thank you from the bottom of our hearts for doing your part to preserve a free and independent local press.
But then maybe everybody gets a little bank of vacation that could kind of tide them over until they start accumulating on this new system. Just an idea for a compromise, and maybe it gets everybody through something.
So we give 8 hours a month of sick leave from day 0, right?
Yes.
And I assume people have used that in the past as vacation. I mean, I'll just be honest here.
So everybody's
I
given the 2 personal days.
okay, so they're given 2
Every
personal days. You're given 8 hours a day per month of sick leave until year 1 of employment. And in retrospect, to me personally, I guess looking back at jobs that I've had in the past, that was kind of your reward for sticking around in the company for a year. Was congratulations, now you've accrued 80 hours or whatever of vacation for this year 1 to year 2, and January 1, here it is.
So right now, the employee who has been here for 21 years gets 192 hours per year of vacation. You're telling them that they're going to have to go back to accruing 16 hours per month. That is not fair to an employee who has given this Weston County
it's the same amount.
No, he's
It's the same
having
amount.
to accrue that instead of getting at the beginning of the year his 192 hours.
And
per
now
month.
you're making them accrue for a year before they take it. It's no different.
No, it is. Because he's been here 21 years. He gets that at the very beginning of the year, 192 hours. You're going to tell him, instead of getting that for working here for 21 years, 192 hours, you're telling him, no, you've got to work January, 16 hours, February, 16 hours, March, 16 hours. That is not fair to that person who has given Weston County 21 years of service. That's not fair to him.
Well,
I think we can make a compromise, sit down and make a compromise. I worked, what I did, I'll just use my company, what I did, for example. You accrued your vacation up through that first year. After you were there 12 months, you got your full years, you got your 10 days come January 1. But that first year of transition, you had to earn those days, and you was there 1 month, you can take that day.
And that's what I see.
Yeah, I think this is the
It applies
problem.
to the new people.
This is the problem I think we can community get out and work through. Respect the people that have been here 20 years, you know, respect them so they're not feeling that they're getting shorted on it. We give the new hires some way to accrue it up through that first year so they can, if they're here 2 months, they can take a day of vacation. I think this is something we can tweak and work. What I'd really like to see with this is, I didn't really realize we had 2 different policies we're doing on vacation. Well, Brian, you don't get elected next year. Your replacement comes in.
Exactly.
I don't like the way you've been doing it. If we have it in our handbook, this is the way it is. Everybody follows it. It's set in stone. So if someone's not reelected, the new person doesn't have to decide which way am I going.
But it needs to be spelled out clear,
Yeah,
because my
absolutely.
interpretation says you can earn, I don't remember, you know. and
Yeah,
so
whatever the years allow.
There again, nobody trained me when I took over as department or gave me advice on how to do it. And look at how many people in this room are not the people from 26 years ago that I
Yeah.
started.
I think that they,
Okay, Frank, Susie was
yes,
there.
you're kind of a leader on the fair board, so yeah.
Why don't you make a thing for new hires, one for.
That's what I think we can. That's what I think we can work in this handbook. Because I didn't realize over that period of time that there were 2 different policies in place for that.
Actually, I think there's 3.
Or 3.
Because like CARE goes from like May 1st to May 1st. If you're, or do you do January? Okay. I misunderstood what you said then. Thank you.
I think this is something we can work with Gina to get through. I mean, the feedback I've got is yes and no on the handbooks for the most part. Other than it's being lengthy, everybody kind of likes the handbook. There's some things personally we don't.
Okay, now, my 3 girls have been here forever. And Jeanette is like 125 years plus. So, I think that and I give my vacation at the beginning of the year because mine are all old, dedicated.
Seasoned.
There you go, they're seasoned. But they're loyal and they're very hard workers. I haven't had the turnover as everybody else. So I see this as more for like the new hire.
I think we can work through this. I think, I'll be willing to sit down with Jeannie, and work, try to get this, the biggest thing I can take out of this handbook is what everybody's fighting is the vacation, how it's accrued and how it's awarded.
And how it's applied.
Yep.
But just the first year, earn it by month, because that new hire will then become a seasoned employee,
Yep.
just like everyone else.
Yep. And then they fall under the category of so many years, so many days.
Right.
Using your idea, Mr. Chair, what could it be put in there as the probationary period that first year? And then it goes to the courtesy of the seniority of the employees that have been here. Is that a possibility, or does that put us at risk?
I don't think we use the word probationary. Just up until you've worked a full year, and then there might have to be a little tweaking in there. Say you were hired after July 1st. Well, come January 1, you only get 6 days. If you're awarded 12, you only get 6 days till July 1st. Then you get the rest of it. Then the year after that, you get it all. That way you can't, if you're falling between that odd time of when you were hired, or, so you don't feel like you're penalized. Oh, I should have got hired into June instead of July 1st because that put me past that 6-month period. And that's something I think we can figure out in some wording to keep it fair for the long-term employees and give the new hires some incentive to stick around.
The other issue that was asked was about HR. I believe, was it you that asked, or Tina?
Tina.
The HR portion of it was put into our county attorney's hands because, I think we've seen examples, and I've talked to you, Tina, about this. I think we've seen examples why it's not fair to put it in a department head, even though some counties actually do that. That's an assignment that is assigned by the commissioners, because then you get into favoritism towards, or it appears to be favoritism towards a department head. And I believe correct me if I'm wrong, Tina, when I asked you about it, you said, yeah, you don't want it in the attorney's hands either. You'd like to see an outside source, but temporarily, you don't want it with the department head either. So in the meantime, we assign that until we can figure out a plan to have HR. Is that changed since we've talked about it? Or, I mean, how do you guys feel about that? I mean, how do I go, it's going to be, or how does the commission go, it's going to be Becky who's the HR? That's not completely fair to the department heads.
I think if we kind of leave it in the attorneys, and then they can just, and the county attorneys decide, okay, this is something we handle internally, or if it's something, they say, hey, we need to go to employers council. They make that decision to send it off. You know, if it's something that's going to, I guess, be sensitive, you know, because how the county's structured, you know, then they can send it off to return it over to the employers council, you know, relay it off to them. Let them kind of be the clearinghouse. Now it's something that we can handle internally, or if like, no, this is above us, then clearinghouse it out to the employers council.
Well, to my understanding now, we don't pay for hourly employees to use the employee council.
No, we do not. So we had a meeting, all of the elected officials with Employees Council, and we visited with them about that, and the elected officials can visit with them unlimited hours. If there is someone, say, in Kara's office that needs to talk to them, they can go to Susie, and Susie can get on the phone with them, and they can talk to them for unlimited hours.
Kara, I don't want you to take this as I'm mad at you or anything, okay? Because she offered to call them and see what they had to offer. Okay, so Kara did her job. On the other hand, did any of you else know that they had this meeting?
No.
You know, this is a problem when you don't have HR. You guys a little bit overstepped your bounds there. Kara said she'd do it, and we told her to. But on the other hand, if you're going to have a group meeting, instead of just Kara finding out, you either invite everybody or you let whoever's doing the human resources know about that. Maybe I would have wanted to come. Maybe Vicki would have wanted to come. Maybe Jim would have wanted to come. You can't just do things like that on your own because we don't have a human resources, because we do.
It
Our
was the
attorney
elected
is our
officials,
attorney.
and it was something that we had to talk to them about. It wasn't for you guys.
But it wasn't all the elected officials.
It was the ones that needed to talk
Vicki's
to
not
them.
I'm not elected, so I fall in a special category.
That's right. I'm sorry.
Brian didn't know about
I
it.
do, you know.
But you didn't know about it, and you take care of human resources.
But I think the question has been answered, that right now our HR department is the county attorney. And we
They
did
kind of
that.
clearinghouse it out.
Right, and as far as the clearinghouse goes, the only thing that I would say about that is the only disappointment I had in that was the deal with the fairgrounds, where we got additional charges that we didn't know we were getting because of that use. So I would just be concerned about that a little bit.
And
Even if you've got an HR person, they're gonna
I'm not saying they wouldn't, but all of us were surprised about it.
I guess I'm just going to talk, and maybe I'm talking out of turn for Mike, but when you guys decided on the HR function, I mean, I wasn't there like raising my hand, but somehow it's or Mike, either one of us were like, pick us. We did not take that on, and I think the discussion was we were going to be the temporary HR folks. And so, I mean, I've handled a number of HR issues. I think Mike's handled a number of HR issues. But I guess from my standpoint, I want to get some direction too. Is this going to be our full-time job? And if so, then I guess we need to know that. Or are you guys still thinking us as a temporary person, and you're going to look for maybe some other person to handle that overall? So I would like some guidance on that. I don't know if Mike does.
I do too, and I think it really should be a third person or an outside source instead of.
And we could work with that HR person on the legal stuff.
But it just, at least the optics for one thing, and then we have the conflicts that could arise.
Do you think it's unfair for an employee to come to you and say, hey, is this your realm or is it HR's realm? And then you say you need to contact employers council via either your elected or department head or a different department head? I mean, is that?
I think we could send people in the right direction. We could try to send people in the right direction. Like, hey, you know what? This might be something where we might be conflicted out as the county's attorney. Maybe this would be something better suited. So I think we could serve that function.
I don't think it's a matter of asking you to be HR. It's a matter of asking you if it's not your realm, and then they just need to be directed to the right source, I guess. But
I know the HR stuff that I've handled in the last 6 months are things that can be taken care of fairly easily with just sitting down with a couple of people and try to sort it through. And sometimes I think that personal touch, even though you want to make sure there's no conflict, obviously, I think having someone internally that you can say, hey, we just need to sit down and talk this through as a supervisor or an employee, can you help us come up with a solution? I think that's helpful to have it in-house. But there may be situations where they're better suited to address some issue, and I think we could certainly send them that way. Or if they felt more comfortable, we could send them that way as well with them. So.
I would just like to comment to what Vera has said. I in no way was intentionally excluding anybody from this
No,
Zoom
and
meeting.
that's why I said that. I
would like to clarify
say
exactly
that.
how this whole thing came about. This spring, I spoke to all of you because I had just become aware of Employers Council's presence at all. And I said, what do they do? And I got very little feedback from anybody. So that just tells me that nobody was really aware of what they are capable of or what services they offer us. And I said I would contact them.
And you did offer,
and I
you
did.
said great.
And I emailed them, and I spoke to Lori over the email this spring. We got really busy this summer. We've been kind of going along in this year, still not really knowing what they offer, what HR services they offer, handbook services they offer, mediation, training, any of that. Nobody had an answer. So when I set up the Zoom meeting with Lori, initially, it was just for me to inform myself, and my intentions were to gather that information, write up a document, attach all of the information that she had sent to me, which I then in turn emailed to all the department heads and all the commissioners as well. And she made it very clear to me that anybody can do this Zoom meeting at any time. It wasn't for any specific reason. It was clearly just to tell us what they do, what it costs, what's an additional cost, how to get a login on their website, how we can utilize their resources, what's paid for. She was encouraging everybody in the county to contact her, speak with her on the phone, on the email, on a Zoom. She'll get you login information. So I wasn't trying to like, okay, you guys, we're just gonna do this and not tell anybody. I had mentioned to a couple other department heads and supervisors that I was doing this and simply said, would you like to watch this Zoom meeting with me? And they took me up on it. Some of them could, some of them couldn't. I did not blast it out to everybody, so for that I apologize. Vicki, if I ever do that again, I will include you on the email.
I just feel like I'm left out of the loop.
It was not with any intention of withholding information or not allowing anybody else to be privy to this. It was just, I was trying to get information on what they offer so that we know, because we don't know what resources we have. If I have a problem, what can I call them for? Is it gonna cost me extra? Is it not? Do I have to put it in my budget? Do you guys have to approve it? If I have 2 employees that wanna use the hotline, do I have to say yeah and just write a voucher? Do I have to come to you? Do you want that to be in a public meeting? Like all these questions that I had.
And I feel like, Kara, you know, I hope I didn't upset you. It's a really good example of we paid for this service, and that's as far as it went. There was no communication to anybody about how it worked, who could use it. I have no idea how to use it, and probably everybody in here has questions about it. So that is not your fault, and I'm not.
I don't feel like it was stepping over the line by contacting them. Because
No,
I feel
and
like
you offered to do
that's
that.
our right to do that,
Yes.
to inform ourselves of what
And you
resources
offered to
we have
do that.
available to us.
But I just think it's a really good example of us not having the communication we need. You know, great, we buy this service and that's it. You know, well, it's not gonna come to us in a dream. We're gonna have to work on this and do some training and get some information out there. If we really wanna use it, then
Well,
I guess that's my complaint.
That
and
was
that
the purpose of the email to everybody, telling them, hey, this is what it is, this is what they offer, this is what is paid for, this is what is an additional charge for you to review. Because ultimately, you're the ones that are gonna either be contracting this out again or not. Is it gonna be worth your time or not? For what they charge, plus what they would charge additionally to support the employees through an HR hotline or an actual HR person that they have offered remotely. That's gonna be up to you ultimately, but I would be remiss if you discounted it completely just because we were uninformed. And that's where I was coming from.
I don't think we utilize employer count as much as we should. I mean, it's kind of, I feel we're still in transition, figuring out what they have to offer. I mean, I think they have a lot more to offer than what we've used and reached out for.
And that's why I called Lori. And that's why she set up a Zoom and so graciously took time out of her day today as well, to speak with me last month, email me, everything. So I just would like to be informed so that we all know what our options are. And if you decide to not go with them in the future, then that's completely up to you. But I wouldn't make that decision without having all of your facts.
So my question is, I mean, are the commissioners intending to adopt the handbook today, except for the vacation leave, and we talk about it late, that part, and draft that, or what's the plan moving forward, so I know?
What's your opinion on that?
You know, I think there's good things about both of these. Obviously the vacation is figured out and it needs to be listed in there exclusively for that. But I think that, you know, I don't really necessarily have a huge problem with this per se, Jeannie. The reason I originally voted no for you to do it is because the next week I called Campbell County and got a copy of the copy that you made with this for $20,000. I got it for free.
Well,
So,
I did most of that at Campbell
I know,
County. So
you've
took
earned it
some-
now.
Well,
I get it.
I took a lot of different,
I
I
get
got
it.
Sheridan County for theirs.
It wasn't because I didn't think that things needed improved.
Okay.
So I think you could
Well,
do a little
I feel a
combination
little
of both.
I feel a little
but
slighted because I put a lot of time and effort into that, so.
I agree. Yeah.
I'd actually like to make a motion to accept the handbook with the exception of section 701 until we can get together and work on that policy that stays the same on vacation. But I don't see any reason why we shouldn't adopt the handbook with the exception of section 701 until we agree.
Could I make a friendly amendment to that
Go ahead.
and put an actual drop dead date that we're going to get that vacation done
You my guess?
by the end of January?
Agreed? I'm okay with that.
Okay.
So I make that motion.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion properly seconded to adopt the new proposed handbook, excluding section 701 vacation leave, and to have that finalized by the end of January 2024. Is there any discussion? Let's keep it brief. Nate?
Exempt, non-exempt, stuff like that. Are we going to establish a basis of recording hours somewhere? Or are we just going to leave that to the whim of whoever is the department head? And is that addressed in here? I don't believe it is. That's what I'm saying. I don't know that, you know.
I thought
I'm not saying this is imperfect, but I'm not saying.
I thought we had addressed it that Michael would do the necessary paperwork that was required to keep the clerk's office in compliance already, but if something separately needs to be addressed in the handbook, that can be amended too without stopping the progress of the other issues in the handbook that are appropriate.
I was enjoying Lori's suggestion on a condensed version. I don't know if that is something that that can go along with the more detailed handbook. Something along these lines. There we've got approximately 30 pages in our current. If that would be a possibility that both could be applied, I don't know. It would be more or less a detail, which would be our primary handbook, but both would be reflective exactly information-wise, if that would be necessary, or you just get the stack.
I think that was kind of addressed earlier in this when they took a lot of the legal terms, put that in the back in the appendix. This seems rather lengthy, but a lot of that is the appendix in the back where it took a lot of the legal terms and the definition.
And
Sorry.
Commissioner.
I believe that if you go and start making 2 handbooks, man, now we're gonna have a lot of issues then, because this person may have this one and this one has this one, and I think you'd be asking for some problems that way. We gotta work on uniformity, so that might be a step in the wrong direction.
Did you take it as if there were 2 separate handbooks?
Even if they're identical to a point, I think you'd still have problems, because one would be lacking information the other one had.
It's true.
Vicki, you had one?
I'm just not sure, Chairman Wagner, if I've got the most recent version, since we've done a lot of, so if I could get one of the most recent versions,
You've been
please.
served.
Thank you.
Merry Christmas. It's even Christmassy.
Yes, it is. Thank you. Because I'm like,
There's no red on
It was
that.
the one that was emailed out back by Brooke initially, so it's the same copy.
Can we get one of those too?
You need an extra?
I guess as long as the department heads and then get their copies first. I think we switch her and Jim and a bunch, and then
Can I say one thing before we vote? Are we discussing?
Yeah, we're still in discussion.
Okay. You know, everybody was really worried about, I'm not sure where it came from that people didn't want to sign it or not sign it and we weren't going to follow it. When you look at the receipt of Weston County Employee Handbook, it's not a whole lot different than the old handbook. But essentially it just says, I have received a copy of the Weston County, Wyoming, August 2023 edition of the Weston County Employee Handbook, which supersedes all previous editions. I understand it is my responsibility to read and become familiar with this information, as doing so will acquaint me with the county's personnel practices, rules, employee benefits, and basic organizational philosophy. This handbook is intended as a guide for the efficient and professional performance of my job. All employees, unless otherwise defined by statute or contract, are considered at-will employees whose employment will be terminated with or without cause. Nothing contained herein shall be construed as a contract for employment. You know, it's just acknowledgement that I'm going to get this. I'm an adult. I'm going to read it. I'm going to try to understand it. It's not a contract. It's for my informational purposes. That's all it is. It's a handbook. We're not writing law. It's a handbook.
But wasn't there a spot in your guys', I don't know what you call them, your goals or your thing, that if you didn't sign the handbook, you didn't get a paycheck? Wasn't there, like in your guidelines that you were talking about somewhere? I see that somewhere. Yeah, the mission statement.
I don't think, do you have your mission statement stuff?
Yes.
I don't think that's what it said.
No.
Do you have that somewhere?
Don't forget, don't lose that.
Goals.
I know. Do you have that somewhere?
No.
The mission statement. Where it says that if you can't, if you don't sign it, you don't get a paycheck? I seen that in something.
That is something we discussed in our class, that is a possibility that you can actually, counties do that.
But is that fair to that employee, that if you don't sign
I would
this,
say
when
if
you're
a
already
county, I would say if a county's having enough trouble with everybody running things the way they want to and not following some kind of uniformity, trying to keep liability down for the county, I would say if that's a possibility, that everybody just, you decide you're not gonna follow it, Becky's not gonna follow it, Kara's not gonna follow it, Vicky's not gonna follow it, everybody's gonna do their own thing. There's gotta be some way to bring people back and go, hey, you are going to hurt yourselves and the county if this is what we have to do. The only way we can, honestly, the only way we can control things like that sometimes is with purse strings. And that's what we've been told, yeah. Not that we're gonna do that. It's up to you to sign this. If you don't wanna sign it, it's gonna be your liability if someone in your office starts a lawsuit and you didn't sign it. I don't know what LGLP is gonna say about that.
I mean,
They may defend you differently.
Basically, signing this handbook is acknowledging.
It's just an acknowledgement.
It's just
Yeah,
acknowledging
but
receipt.
we're, I didn't see that somewhere.
It was
We
in
didn't
the-
adopt
It was
anything
the
like
thing
that.
that they handed out last week or last 2 meetings ago.
Had the 10 different things or
When we were
whatever.
handed
goals.
it out.
Very
Yeah.
goals.
And
But
it
those are just their
said,
goals
We didn't
that we
adopt
went
the goals
through. Yeah, we haven't even thought about
but
those.
it was on that and it just said, anyone who receives a Weston County paycheck or something must sign it.
Okay, yeah, it did, yeah, we did have, okay, that's what it said, okay.
But we didn't adopt goals.
That just
We haven't
acknowledges,
adopted
just,
goals.
by signing the handbook, just acknowledges you received.
Yes, I realize that, but there's also this other
But
phrase floating around.
they should, don't you think that people who get paychecks should sign if they acknowledge they have a.
An employee should sign the employee handbook, yes. But, I mean, but they put their work in. I mean, I'm just really not clear on that.
I think Susie's just frustrated that it was connected to their paycheck. Anybody who gets a paycheck must sign it. They don't have to sign it. It's just acknowledging that
Anybody
they
that's a full-time
received
employee
it.
gets a paycheck, anybody that's a full-time employee will have this handbook because it's our
Whether they
policies
sign
and
it or not.
procedures. Whether they sign it or not, and if they don't sign it, that should be somewhere in their file that they did not sign it.
Well, it probably would be in the file, but yeah. I mean, thank you.
Yeah, it's in the goals section, but it hasn't been adopted yet. But here's the thing. As commissioners, our job is the budget, and our job is also to make sure that we're doing things in the best interest of the county. So our job would be to, if we have a lawsuit that could start, or we are liable for something, is to minimize that liability. And if that's a tool, which I hope we never would use, but that is a tool that it's at our discretion. And it would have to be decided on by the board, but I believe our mission, value, and our values and vision was adopted, but not the other portion, the goals, because we were concerned that some of those were not approved or how we were going to meet those. If I'm incorrect, please tell me, but that's how I believe we adopted it. Unfortunately, you don't get to go to a job and go, I want to get paid, but I don't want to do this, this, and this. You have the option of showing up at the job and saying, I want the job, and I understand the requirements, and I'm going to do those requirements. It might hurt somebody's feelings to say, well, look, if you don't do this, you're not going to get paid. But that's the reality. We haven't adopted it, but that's the reality wherever you go.
But now I got a question for Michael. Now, Michael, is this legally something that a person can do? Hold a paycheck if they don't sign the handbook?
I'm not sure off the top of my head. I don't know if Jamie has any sort of thoughts on that.
Well, I think when you become an employee, like Dawn was saying, you adhere to a lot of what the expectations are with the job. And if you're willing to comply with the expectations of the job and you get hired, then you get paid.
No, I understand
If at
that
some
part
point
of it.
your expectations differ from that of your employer, that could be grounds for termination because you can fire at will.
That's termination, but that's not holding a paycheck. They're not
Well, if
giving
they
you a
do the
paycheck.
work and then they should get paid.
Yes.
But at some point, their values and what they think they need to do in relation to a job versus your employer's rules and expectations may differ. And at some point, it may come down to your employer saying you no longer are going to work here.
Exactly.
So yes, if they do the work, then they get paid. If at some point the expectations change, then the employer and the supervisor, the employee have a discussion, and maybe they're not working here anymore.
Yeah, they'll be dismissed.
Right.
But, I
They
mean,
still get paid for
just,
the work.
Yeah, just but if you just don't sign this, you're still going to get a paycheck.
Right. If you do the work and
Yeah. Okay.
I wonder if it'd be beneficial, this is just for further discussion, to wait 2 weeks, come down with the correct policy for the vacation, because it just doesn't make sense to me to adopt this. Okay, we all sign it. Now we need the employee's signature. Now we're gonna change it in 2 weeks. Now we need the employee's signature because we changed it again. I just don't, if it's not in there when the employee signs it, are we gonna circulate the whole thing again?
I absolutely respect what Commissioner Todd says. I want to disagree in the sense that we have put this off for 2 weeks for a year and a half. And it's caused a lot of drama and dilemma within the department heads. And the only thing that we put on there that I know of is 701, which would put that in response. And you're not signing that.
Am I signing this today? as adopted.
If you're adopting, you are.
So
Except
then
for
next
701.
week, 2 weeks from now, I'm gonna have to sign a new one, right?
701, you will have to sign an attachment, but how long does it take to do that?
Not an attachment, it's part of the
It's
handbook.
part of the handbook.
You'd
It's
have
a-
to add a
it's an amended-
signature
it's a-
page to it, that is correct.
That will be an amendment to the handbook, we'll have to reprint the whole thing.
Well,
Again,
That's
it's just kicking the can down the road, in my
Can
opinion.
we make an amendment to your motion that we're adopting it to move forward? We're adopting it, no, we're moving forward with it, discussion's done. We're accepting it as it is, and we're going to fix the vacation, and then we'll adopt it by the end of January. But I think everybody's so tired of it, let's go ahead and accept it, we're gonna accept it as our new handbook.
Well,
We don't have to adopt it by signature today, but
That's what the
certainly
motion
we
said.
need to stop talking about it at this point. We're gonna quit beating the dead horse now.
Okay, let's do this, let's call the question, we'll vote it down. Then we decide what we're doing. But as the motion is out there, is to adopt it with that change and a deadline on that change. That's what the motion is. That's what all the discussion's been about. So, all those in favor of adopting the handbook today with withholding section 701 to be clarified in 2 weeks or be clarified by the end of January is the motion that's on the floor. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 All those opposed say nay.
Nay.
Nay. The nays have it. Motion failed.
Okay, can we do a new motion?
I would rather do a direction to Jeannie Stone, Deputy Stone, that we will have this vacation issue settled by the end of January. By our second, it will be on our agenda by the second meeting of January to be adopted then.
We're in the middle of jury trials that week, I'm guessing, because we have 3 weeks of jury trials upstairs. But if I'm available, I
Well,
certainly could
no,
make
I
a
mean,
meeting.
just to make this, you don't have to be to that date, but if we can sit down for, I think this vacation problem could be hashed out in a matter of 2 hours and policy written.
I agree.
And then submitted to all the department heads for their approval.
I disagree with that. In our timeline, I found in all the minutes from the last 2 years since this came up, there's never been a motion and a vote to have this approved by the department heads. At one point in March of 2022, Commissioner Barton said, I'd appreciate it if you run it by them before you do it. That was the only thing that was ever said. I gave you a list of all of Jeannie's letters that went with her revisions, and I know there's a whole lot more. And I would hope that the department heads would admit that she's done her best to reach out. All of these have suggestions from them that she made. Now, we can't keep putting this back on the department heads and the elected officials. It is up to us now to do this as the commissioners. She's given us a really good product. Everybody seems to be pretty on board with it. I think it's up to us not to run it back by them. We've gotten their opinions about vacation. It's pretty clear how it's been done. You had a good suggestion. I think we can go forward as a commission to do it. I don't think it has to go back to them.
Well, not going to them for their approval, sending it out to all the department heads. This is how it's going to read.
What if you made a motion that you approve the handbook as written today, except for subsection 701, and that you're going to review and generate a policy for 701, and once that's adopted, then you adopt the full product?
Thank you, Vic. I still have a problem, though, that we have another issue withstanding that of the issue we discussed earlier. Are we gonna adapt that into our policy? And because certain elected officials may be gone at any given moment of an election, I think that needs in here. I think there might be an opportunity in the next 2 weeks. I don't care if we do this at the first meeting in January. I'm okay with it. I just like a couple weeks, there's A, B, and C that I would like to work around.
What, for the other elected officials, careful how I word this. There was discovered a reporting procedure for Wyoming retirement that was not clarified. And that was being clarified, and what that amounts to is a exempt salaried employee that is not elected needs to turn in a time ticket for their retirement. For Wyoming retirement requires anyone to be any exempt or non-exempt. They need to have a timesheet for retirement. For Wyoming retirement. And that was not clarified in our handbook. And that would be one other thing that I'd like to see a short in that section sentence.
For when you take retirement.
For that, no.
No, to you, the department has to get timesheet.
Timesheet sent in.
Of the person that has retired.
It's almost that time, isn't it?
Oh, it's yeah,
So where are we at? Attorneys have to leave.
I also think, I'm also in agreement with Garrett in the fact that I do think sometimes shorter is better. I mean, I'm not saying, again, that this is wrong, but give them 2 weeks, it gives me an opportunity to look it over it, and if I find A, B, or C, and there's, or if they
Commissioner
find
Todd,
A, B,
you've
or
had this for
C.
2 years. You have 3 years.
No, I have not, Vera.
You have.
Would you give me the floor, please?
Nate has the floor. Please do not interrupt.
I haven't been in charge of this for 2 years. All I'm asking for is an opportunity to look at A, B, and C in this book, so that the next meeting in January. I got it. I don't care if it's the first meeting or the second meeting, whatever it is, we get a few of the last 5-minute details to hammer it out and put it in here. And I just don't see any reason to, what we voted for, to sign something if we're gonna change it. Let's get it hammered out and done with sooner than later.
It's already been later.
I'm aware of that, Don. Initially, we were told this is gonna be done in 3 months,
I agree, that's my point.
so.
I mean, it's ridiculous at this point.
Could we need to put it under
I'd
new
like to
business?
see it under
New business and the first meeting in January with a couple changes that we did. One was the vacation and the other one was the clarification on the exempt, non-exempt.
I have no issue with that.
Okay. Are we good? Okay. Reach the end of our agenda. Anything else that come for the good of the department?
Merry Christmas and Happy New Year to everybody.
Thank you.
Well,
Is it in the handbook?